Hi, everybody. Welcome into Sports Talk Chicago. My name's Jon Zaghloul. Great to have you here on Channel 59.3 BPOD TV and Roku. Big show today is Darnell Mooney, a number 3 wide receiver. We'll break it all down in just a second. Before we get started, make sure you follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Jon Z Sports and on Facebook at Jon Zaghloul. You to watch more of this show, search up Sports Talk Chicago on YouTube or go to sportstalkchicago.com. You to watch more shows from the VPOD TV network. Search for BPOD TV on YouTube. I want to start today with this. I know I've been harsh on my critique of Darnell Mooney. I haven't been secretive in it. I've been pretty honest with all of you. I don't think he's a number 1 wide receiver. I'd like to see more, and that's not me criticizing him or slighting him. It's just the fact that I don't believe his production has matched what a number 1 should be doing. He barely got to 1,000 yards last year. Granted, rookie quarterback, bad offense, Matt Nagy. But he's a 5th-round pick, and still in the NFL, he hasn't done anything of great significance yet. He could this year or in the future, but as of now, not so much. The numbers he's put up resemble most definitely a number 2 and potentially a number 1 this coming season. But Dan Orlovsky of ESPN came out with a completely different evaluation. I'll read you the tweet right here. Orlovsky said this, quote, Justin Fields has 2 pass catchers drafted in the 3rd round or earlier. 2. A 3rd-round rookie wide receiver and a 2nd-round tight end. He doesn't have a number 1 or number 2 wide receiver. His starting wide receiver unit consists of, quote, undrafted, 5th-round pick, undrafted. If he plays well, he will be in an MVP combo. Lot to dissect there. Orlovsky, for the most part, is correct with the exception of Mooney. It's no secret the Bears have no wide receivers, and I've been preaching this for the past year and a half. This is one of the worst wide receiving corps in football, one of the worst wide receiving rooms in football. They may have guys who will look good, who have potential, but here's the funny part. I'm not going to consider 5 undrafted free agents as the answer for Justin Fields. That's ridiculous. Saw some comments on my page about that, like, hey, they signed 5 undrafted free agents. When have any of those worked out big time? Often. All those guys are going to be off the team in a year. They're not going to be here. They're not going to play. They'll be lucky if they even break training camp. He'll probably be one of the first players cut. All those undrafted wide receivers. None of them are worth considering as weapons for Justin Fields. None of them. You can't count them. You bring in St. Brown, who has 98 receiving yards as a career high this season. Byron Pringle, who could show some promise as a solid number 2 or number 3. Darnell Mooney. And Cole Kmet. It's no secret. Justin Fields does not have apt wide receiver production or help. So it's not controversial to state that opinion, even though lots of people don't want to hear it. But it's true. I mean, it's all sound in evidence and in draft status and in statistics, in the eye test even. Cole Kmet, to me, has a lot of work to do. And he has to prove himself really this year. I don't mind the 600 yards, but I don't like no touchdowns. I don't. St. Brown is only 98 yards in his career. So damn right, if he doesn't get at least 200, 300 something, his ass should be out the door. These are things we have to keep track of throughout the season. Byron Pringle, career high last year, 600 receiving yards. Yet you're in Kansas City as a number 2, number 3. Come to Chicago with Justin Fields. Can you put up similar or better numbers in this system? My guess is probably not. So what do the Bears really have? That's why I agree with Orlovsky for the most part. But the one part of his old argument that caused a lot of contention recently is that Darnell Mooney is not even a number 2. Look, Dan Orlovsky is a good analyst, but remember, he was the same guy who stepped out of the end zone on a safety. It was a bust of a quarterback. But even more than that, his evaluation of Darnell Mooney is flat out wrong. And I know it's coming from me. I've been very harsh on his career, on his case. But Darnell Mooney is not a number 3 wide receiver. A number 3 wide receiver is a guy who's going to get you 750, 800 yards, and that's a good one. Usually not even the case. That's a high end number 2 wide receiver, number 3 wide receiver. That's high. Darnell Mooney last year was the only Bear to post 1,000+ yards, even more than Allen Robinson. It was sabotaged, but still. And his rookie year, Darnell Mooney, 631 yards. He was already, as a 5th-round draft pick rookie, the number 2 wide receiver in the Bears offense. Despite the whole quarterback controversy, despite Matt Nagy. How do you put up 631 receiving yards in a year in which you have 2 different quarterbacks, a horrible head coach, and constant scrutiny on the offense? Oh, yeah, and you're a 5th-round draft pick. You had no expectations entering the season. You probably weren't even going to play, and you did, and you succeeded to that extent. Darnell Mooney is not a number 3 wide receiver. I can't even name you a comparison of a number 3 wide receiver. Who cares? If you think of a number 3 wide receiver comparable to Darnell Mooney, tell me. That's the point. Number 3 wide receivers, for the most part, are irrelevant. If anything, if you want to compare him to Steve Breaston from the Arizona Cardinals in the year in which they had 3 receivers get 1,000 yards, fine. But that's it, and that's an anomaly. One of the only times that's ever happened in NFL history. Larry Fitzgerald, Anquan Bolden, and Steve Breaston all posted 1,000 yards for the Arizona Cardinals one year. Steve Breaston got 1,006. He was the number 3. If you want to compare Darnell Mooney to Steve Breaston, fine. But that's the only way you could justify to me that Darnell Mooney's a number 3 wide receiver. So Dan Orlovsky was referring to Steve Breaston, whom many people don't even know about, fine. But he obviously wasn't. This was a slight on Darnell Mooney and his ability and capability in the NFL moving forward and what he's done so far. I'm not saying Darnell Mooney's a superstar number 1. We can all agree on that, but he is not a number 3. A number 3 is almost meaningless at that point. A number 3 is Eddie Royal, Taylor Gabriel. These are number 3 wide receivers. You're going to tell me Darnell Mooney's the same as Taylor Gabriel? Eddie Royal? Come on. That's a stupid comment to make. And yet it was made on national TV and on Twitter. Once again, a picture that the national media tries to paint that doesn't really exist. This doesn't exist. Darnell Mooney is not a number 3. Anybody with a brain and a football sense knows that. This was said to generate clicks and outrage, and I guess it worked. I'm pretty pissed about it myself, but still. How can you call yourself an NFL analyst or an NFL expert and then make a claim like that? It's fine to be mad at the Bears for not giving Justin Fields enough weapons, and that's true. I think we can all agree on that. But to claim that Darnell Mooney, your true only weapon to an extent, is a number 3, that's inaccurate. And Dan Orlovsky needs to be better at understanding statistics and also film. He's an avid film watcher. You could clearly see when you watch Darnell Mooney play, this is not some number 3 pushover wide receiver, some journeyman. Might have been drafted in that spot in the 5th round. Doesn't mean he is. Doesn't mean the position in which he was drafted defines who he is as a player. That's stupid. And Tom Brady would be a bust, right? 7th round, 6th round. So however way you slice the justification that Orlovsky had for his statement, it makes no sense. Be better. That's my message. Be better than that. And I know everybody makes mistakes. I'm not always right, or I misspeak at times, but this is just simple know-how. You have to know about something like this before you say something. Even though I haven't been as high on Darnell Mooney, I know he's not a number 3. He's not a number 3, unless he's a Steve Breaston, which we're not even talking about. You're basically saying he's equivalent to Taylor Gabriel or Eddie Royal with that statement. So Darnell Mooney's the same as those two. Right. Does that make any sense? Come on. That's an insult to Mooney. That's a huge insult to him. He might not be a number one yet. Maybe he will be someday. We don't know, but he's not a number three. He's 10 times better. I'd rather have more than anything Darnell Mooney over Eddie Royal or Taylor Gabriel. And that's not offensive at all. That's the truth. Not offensive to them. Darnell Mooney's way better. He's done more with less. Can you imagine Darnell Mooney's situation? Darnell Mooney's played with 3 different quarterbacks already, 5th round pick, now a new head coach, bad head coach before, and he's still producing. That's impressive. Shouldn't be a slight or, oh yeah, he's a number 3. No. What are you judging him for based on his draft position, Dan Orlovsky? Because again, if that's the case, then we should say Tom Brady's a bust, right? Tom Brady's a bust then, because he was a 7th round pick out of Michigan. And he sucked at the combine. So he is, by default, a bust. See what I mean? You can't judge people based on their draft position. Sure, the Bears don't have a first-round, hyped-up, top-pick wide receiver. That's a problem, and we've talked about that before. It would be great for the Bears to have some big-time superstar, a Deebo Samuel, some top pick. They don't. Unfortunately, they don't. That's not going to help Justin Fields. But you know who will help him? Darnell Mooney. Darnell Mooney will help out Justin Fields. He will be the default number 1 on this weaker Bears wide receiving core. But in reality, on any other team, if you put Darnell Mooney anywhere else, he'd be a solid number 2. No question. Anywhere else. Darnell Mooney is definitively one of the top 64 wide receivers in football. If you don't think so, then again, you got some work to do. Name me 64 better wide receivers than Darnell Mooney in football. 64, not 32, not 20, not 10, 64. Yeah, I don't think so. You cannot name me 64 better wide receivers. Which means, by default, Darnell Mooney's a number 2, not a number 3. And if you want to make the fringe number 3 argument, then name me 96 better wide receivers than Darnell Mooney. You can't. That'd be like saying St. Brown's better, Pringle's better. No, they're not. It's just a stupid argument to make. And it's obvious that maybe ESPN had a slow news week because this makes no sense to talk about. We all know Justin Fields does not have the weapons that he should have. We know that the Bears have not done enough in the wide receiver room to make things easier on him. That's apparent to everybody. But to insinuate the guys they already have, one guy already has a 1,000-yard season and who's done so much with so little, to insinuate he's a number 3 is ridiculous. And Dan Orlovsky, you're better than that. Sorry. It's fair for everybody to worry about Justin Fields, to worry about what weapons he's going to have, what he's going to be capable of in this offense. New coach, new offensive line, new wide receivers, not enough wide receiving help. But you can't demean a guy who's produced. You can't. Can't talk down on somebody when by far he's one of the top 96 wide receivers in football, one of the top 64 wide receivers in football. He is, which by default makes him a definitive number 2. Don't judge somebody based on draft position only. It'd be different if he's a rookie, 5th round pick. We don't know anything about him. Way different. Darnell Mooney's proven with Matt Nagy as his head coach and 3 different quarterbacks that he can produce at the NFL level. So to say he's a number 3 is ridiculous and wrong. And as I said, I know for a fact Orlovsky was not referring to Steve Breston of the Cardinals. That 1 year he got 1,006 yards. He wasn't. This was a slight to Darnell Mooney. Dan, look at the numbers. Look at the situation, even more than the numbers. Mitch Trubisky, Nick Foles, Justin Fields, Andy Dalton. So 4 quarterbacks total, really. And look what Darnell Mooney's done. And now a new head coach comes in, new offense comes in, and I guarantee you he'll produce similar numbers this upcoming year, even if the year is ugly. Last year was ugly, 1,000 yards. Last year was very ugly, 1,000 yards. Rookie year, pretty ugly too, 631. That's number 2-esque production. And on any other team in the NFL, Darnell Mooney would be a definitive number 2. Thanks for watching today's show here on VPOD TV, channel 59.3 in Roku. Really appreciate the time. Remember, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Jon Z Sports and on Facebook at Jon Zaghloul. You know, watch more of this show. Search up Sports Talk Chicago on YouTube or go to sportstalkchicago.com. You know, watch more shows on VPOD TV. Go to YouTube and search up VPOD TV or watch me every night right here at 10:30. Thank you so much for watching. So long, everyone.